Welcome back, brothers, to the 801st podcast, a Star Wars Legion podcast here in Salt Lake City at Demolition Games. Stop by if you're ever in the area for some awesome deals on Star Wars Legion and all of your tabletop needs. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello there.
You must unlearn
Dark
what you
side of
have
the
learned.
Force is a pathway to many abilities.
Red, green, or red, green, red.
I know.
God, she'll do!
Sorry about the mess.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
General Kenobi.
Let's rearrange some architectures.
Is it possible to learn this power?
I thank you for your hospitality.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
Impressive.
I'll show you the dark side.
All right, Matt, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. So good to be here, Kyle.
It's so good to see you.
I'd love to see it.
Not like I just didn't see you every day of the week, but
I know. Like, I'm tired of seeing your ugly mug, you know?
yeah, you hate to see it. People probably like, okay, you need to know that Matt and I say that meme way too much. Every time we roll a dice, or every time we see something we hate, you hate to see it.
You hate to see, or you love to see
Yeah,
it.
if it's like a good kill or something, you'll love to see it. That's just like a staple of a game between Kyle and Matt.
I'll tell you how bad it's getting. I was at work today, and my boss was going through paperwork, and he saw something that somebody messed up, and he goes, you hate to see it. I know my ears, I pricked up, and I was like, oh, Kyle, where you at? Where you at?
Oh, man. Well, it's great because like I've also like within the community we've also like rubbed off on people a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll play with somebody and they're like, you hate to see it.
Like, where'd you learn that? Who taught you that? Yeah.
I mean, we're not original, but hey, I mean, like we had an influence. I feel like
Something like that.
Well, today, guys, we're going to be talking about building effective lists. That's going to be our main topic. But before we get into that, we do want to just say again a huge thank you. Your guys' support on Discord and Twitter and Instagram has been great. Thanks for like joining us on this journey. Without you, we wouldn't even have made it to this episode 4. Episode 4.
Wow, man, that's like the best Star Wars movie. Well, controversial for some people, yeah.
You may say this episode is a new hope.
A New Hope, of course, for a lot of things. You love to see it.
Well, okay, so how do you look at it, right? Like, was the 4th episode chronologically, like the best one? Or would you say 4th episode in order of release?
Oh.
So Ewok, the movie, would probably be...
So the holiday special was the best.
Hey, we got a pretty cool gun out of the holiday special.
I think Boba Fett was a white supremacist in that. I don't know.
Oh, was he really?
I think he was like white in that one or something.
Oh, was he?
Like,
Oh,
like
my
he didn't have
gosh.
color. It's like, yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen it. Maybe I just was so scarred I omitted it from my memory.
Yeah, it's supposed to, it's weird. I can't. I think that's how
George
it was.
Lucas, how dare you deceive us? Meanwhile, the Nazi stormtroopers.
Oh my goodness, the space fascists.
The space fascists.
Love, you hate to see it.
I almost said it too. Gosh
I know.
dang it.
Beat you to it.
Oh no, you hate to see it.
Oh,
We could just go on for that.
Oh,
hours.
gosh.
I'm sorry.
2 hours of just that, right?
Okay, so Matt, how were your games this week?
You know, they're actually really good. So, kind of following up on last week's games, I'm moving a little bit away from the droids right now. But I'll be honest, this week kind of makes me want to play droids again because I played a lot of Palpatine. Ooh. I know. I'm probably so original. After Luke Cook playing, I'm sure everybody is. Palpatine takes worlds.
Do it.
Oh, you know what's
I
funny?
freaking did it, man.
I freaking did it. You know what's funny? I didn't play And Now You Will Die this week.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't need to.
Oh, okay.
So,
But you did play my entire Legion.
I actually did. I
That's the
actually
best,
did.
man. That card, when that card goes off, it's just,
It's crazy, but I think get you given to your anger.
oh yeah.
Hands down one of the best. So I'll
Yeah, that's a good
illustrate
one.
from one of the games we were playing. I was running Palp Shoreline. So it's Palpatine, IRGs, 3 short troopers, 2 mortars, a Medbot stormtrooper, and then just 2 sniper teams.
Yeah.
I think did I have death? I did not have death troopers. And I was going against a Vader Krennic list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the illustrate what happened was Vader. Vader was coming right at Palpatine and the IRGs, And I was able to put some damage into him, lay a little bit of suppression, but not do too much. And then when Vader was just ready to strike, I knew he was going to play his 1-pip.
Ugh.
I played Getcha. You love to see it. Well, for him, he hates to see it.
You hate it.
But I felt bad because the look on his face when he saw Getcha go off and it hit him that he was not going to do Vader first.
Oh.
Well, because what I did was I picked a group. We were playing Recover the Supplies.
Yes.
And he had a group of troopers that were off on the very far edge of the board, not even in shooting range, I don't think, of my guys. And so I picked them. So they couldn't shoot. So they basically picked up the box, took force suppression, and then since Palp gets the command, I was able to get the Royal Guards to go.
Oh.
So I took the Royal Guards, aimed, moved, charged into Vader, did 3 wounds on him.
Okay, so that hurts a lot.
It hurts a lot, especially because then Palp pulled the strings
Ugh.
to finish Vader. It was great. It was a great move.
So his Vader's gone, and he had Krennic left.
I need Krennic.
How many? Like, I assume this player probably had like a lot of core units to back up. Like, what? Because you said his units were off to the side for objectives. Were they? Was he just focusing more on the objective, or?
It was interesting because we both had 1 box and we were both fighting over. No, we both had 2 boxes and we were fighting over the middle box.
Okay.
That's kind of how it always comes down to a little bit. But it was interesting because his Vader didn't go for the box. His Vader kind of went past the box.
Okay.
And he had Death Troopers and 2 Snow Troopers following him up to kind of like protect Vader a little bit. And then Krennic and a bunch of just regular Stormtroopers were on the other side with a set of Shores, kind of shoring up his backline a little bit.
Okay.
But it was kind of sad because the Death Troopers were actually kind of scary because if I'm focusing Vader down, I'm gonna take hits, right?
Right. Yeah.
But after I was able to play Getcha, IRGs into Vader, pull the strings, take out Vader. Next turn, I actually played Palp's 1-pip, and I didn't go with Palp because Palp was a little far away. He couldn't quite get the lightning off. So I just pulled the strings with the IRGs. They moved, charged into the Death Troopers.
Get in the melee, yeah.
Which made him have to pull Krennic out to go to the middle box. And I won the game because then I used Palp to pull the strings again with Ambush the next turn. IRGs into Krennic for the kill.
I feel like when Krennic is exposed in any way like that, when you force your opponent to bring Krennic up to chase an objective, the game's over. The Krennic is not, he's not meant to. Maybe there's situations out there, right, where Krennic is going to come in clutch just because he's a unit that's there and eligible, right? But I feel with his role that he performs, if you're forcing Krennic out there to do an objective, you're pretty much setting him out to die.
I agree, and I think it helps. Like with the Death Troopers, the fact that you entourage to 1 to 2 means you have a 1 to 2 range. But I think you're right. You kind of want him sitting back.
Yeah.
Because he's got a good gun for defense if you do need to hold down a position.
Yeah.
But I think he's the only. Is he the only Imperial commander that has a wide defense save?
I want to say so, but you play Empire.
That's true. I would know better.
I wouldn't know.
I think he is. I haven't used the generic commander in forever, so I couldn't tell you. But I think he's the only white defense saves. Obviously, you guys let us know in the Discord.
Let us know if we're ever wrong about any of this or if we missed something, because that's what it's all about. Matt and I never claim to be the end-all, be-all of competitive or knowledge bases. We're pretty new still, but we just, like we said at the very beginning of this podcast, we love the game, so that's why we're doing all this. Okay, so Krennic was there, Death Troopers. You killed Vader. Who else was left? Was that it?
That was pretty much it, because he had boxes, but by that point, I'd taken another box away from him, so I won on the objectives. And if it had gone to kill points, I would have had it then too.
Okay.
So it was
a pretty good win for you.
It was a solid win.
Okay.
It was an interesting thing because I hadn't. The player's objective was kind of a little bit more of a rush tactic, get there first, and I kind of played it a little bit slower, but used Palpatine. And Palpatine's the control he exerts on the field, I don't know if you've seen this in games, but it really makes me want to do that with Dooku, because I feel like Dooku's cards are very similar to Palp's, but just not like they're like, if Palp is a 10, Dooku's like an 8, 8.5.
Right.
Those cards.
You take a high tier character and knock him down a little bit, that's still a super good character.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, people. Well, I think you said it best. It's like when you play Palpatine, you kind of see the potential of where Dooku could go with maybe if he gets something else that he can work with, similar to how Palpatine worked with IRGs. I don't think you said that on the podcast, but I think you said that to me in our own conversation.
Yeah, I think we're talking about that. I can't.
But if Dooku had something like that, I think he would be the Palpatine, quote unquote, of the Separatists, which is totally thematic and works for the game at the same time. So that's awesome. So are we talking Operative Vader? I can't remember if you said that. Operative Vader or Commander Vader?
It actually was Commander Vader.
Okay.
Because with the rush tactic, he wanted to do the suppression thing. And
Okay.
I admit that was helpful, but I think either way, you can't go wrong with Vader for suppression. Just,
Yeah.
he has a big suppression cap.
Yeah, I mean, I still want to see more of, like, the differences as far as different people in different playstyles. I think people will naturally gravitate to one or the other. I don't necessarily want to go out there and say, oh, Operative Vader is just so much better than Commander Vader, when this person with the right tool set or mindset can make the other work really well. And I think there's another thing I said to you in our own conversations. I honestly think Commander Vader is solid enough on his own, especially since his point reduction. I think Operative Vader, while yes, you do get a cheaper Vader out of it, I feel like the biggest appeal for players to go ahead and pick up Operative Vader is the command cards.
100% agree on that. And it's interesting you say all that, because I think you're 100% right. And Operative Vader is still new enough that I don't think people have quite worked out how to use his command cards. I mean, if you play TTS, sure, maybe you've had months.
Yeah.
But the average player who doesn't do TTS, they're just barely trying his command cards out. They're just barely seeing what he can do.
And you know me, like, I am very, not that I'm against TTS at all. I have no problem with Tabletop Simulator. If people want to play that and, like, get used to a unit, that's fine. But I think there is so much to be said about learning the game two different ways. The game does not perform the same way on Tabletop Simulator as it does on the actual table. That comes down to dice rolls. That comes down to how you see things on the table. There's so many differences. Sure, it is fundamentally Star Wars Legion. That's cool. If you like it, great. More power to you. I actually refuse to use Tabletop Simulator because I don't want to reprogram my brain every time I hop to one or the other. I would rather just focus on the mainstay Legion.
I agree. And like for me, it's also a little bit of the social aspect. I mean, I know you can get a hop on your headset, but there's just something different between like being there with the person and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That I really like. Just being at the table with the person at a game store or even just a house. Just, there is something to be said about that. But I guess, that was kind of like a big highlight of my week playing with Palp. I've really loved him, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but like I really could see a future of just Dooku. I think he is a very much a like high ceiling character, a little bit of a maybe mid to high level entry level, high ceiling character that I think has a lot of potential. But I guess how'd your games go this week?
My games went really well. I actually only got to get one game in. I had an incredibly busy week, unfortunately.
You'd say that again.
Yeah.
Right.
The player I played against played a very similar list, just Commander Vader, no Krennic. They had the Gav tank, which I really enjoy playing against the Gav tank because I feel like it's
because
giving...
you kill it? Or...
yes, Tauntauns and Ram, you love to see it. No, but like besides that, like I do feel like the tank right now is a really good way to get practice against the upcoming tanks.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Like with the AAT and the Saber class, like I feel like those are going to be, we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of those on the table, especially when the Separatists are going to be able to take an AAT like nothing. Like they're going to have no problem fitting that into a list, you know?
We'll talk about this later, but you sent me a list last night that was 9 activations, double tank, 5 B1s, Grievous.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And I mean, I would love to see something like that actually work. Granted, I don't play Separatists, so that's why I was like, hey, is this a thing? Like, would this be successful? And, like, you play Separatists, so you would know better. But also, like, neither of us have our hands on the tank yet. Anyways, I do feel like the Gav tank is good practice for the upcoming shift in the tide, I guess you could call it. I do like to see it on the table. I did end up giving my opponent a couple words of advice on this game because I've played this player a few times with the Gav, And when this player always plays the Gav, they don't play it in a way that's making me afraid of it. They're not giving me suppression enough. They're not plowing over my troops enough. They're backing off, actually. They'll see Tauntauns run up, and they'll see maybe my commander with some core units come up on the other side. And I feel like this player, they see both people coming out the weak points on the sides and then feels the need to back up. But and this is the hard part with the Gav, with its, because I can't speak from experience because I don't play it. Just from how I would be afraid of it from the opposite side of the table, I feel like the awkward base does make it a little harder to think straight.
Okay,
when you're like,
yeah.
how do I maneuver myself in a way that's gonna be beneficial to me and not expose my weak sides too much? But in the end, like, the Gav is that's gonna be the plague of a Gav as long as it's alive. Like, the massive impact on the sides. The upcoming tanks are going to have a way smaller space to be in there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I totally understand. And those side arcs are big.
Yeah.
That's a truth that you just have to kind of deal with. And you're just talking about the Gav tank. This is something I've been thinking about because we have a couple players who've been using like ATSTs and stuff as well in our local area. And I've kind of noticed a couple things that, like, as they play, even when I'm not playing them, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting decision you made there. And I'm asking you this because the tanks will come out eventually for the Republican stuff. Do you think maybe there's a little bit of a, like, knowledge gap as far as how to use vehicles just because they haven't been prevalent in the game? Or do you think it's more of a fear to lose just the centerpiece in the game? Or do you think maybe it's just when people have used it, it gets focused down real quick?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is kind of like been people's experiences and maybe how it influences the game being played, considering you were just playing somebody who used a vehicle?
No, it's a very interesting question, and the easy answer is also, I feel, the cop-out answer, which is also, unfortunately, I feel the correct answer, which is a little bit of everything, right? You don't want, like how you said, the centerpiece of your list. Like, when people bring a vehicle, they have to accommodate for that. I feel like instead of picking a commander and then picking units to support that commander, I feel like you're picking your tank or your heavy and then building around it. I feel like the only exception to that would be something like the airspeeder, where it's cheap. It's just a little bit more expensive than some Tauntauns. You don't really have, if you have enough points, go ahead, throw that in there, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like you have to build your list around it.
That's true, and I think ATRTs even more so, where they're just plug them in there, man. Cheaper than Tauns, just do what you got to do. Right.
No, and the other part of that too is I feel, yes, people haven't really experienced enough with the vehicles. I know for sure I won't be playing them perfectly when I get my hands on the Saber class. That'll be my first ground tank, my first ground heavy. So the learning curve from my beloved airspeeder to the tanks is going to be interesting.
Man, I can't wait for you to like try and run that thing over like height 2. You know what I mean? I'm like, Kyle, that's not an airspeeder.
You can't do that.
Sorry, bud. 45-degree angle rule. You know?
Yep. Yep. Oh man, yeah. So that coupled with just the sheer heft of that, like I feel like if you're coming down to a tie on objectives and your big heavy unit is about to get killed off, you're naturally inclined to be like, oh crap, I have to back off because if I have to go to points, this is my ace in the hole, you know, which is good and bad, but also mostly bad.
Mostly bad. Oh, I will say this is something from the ATST player side. I absolutely hate when like. So playing you, for example, you do this a lot. I'm sure other people are seeing this, but like I put the ATST on the board, and you just start picking off my core troopers.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I just have an ATST left.
Right.
It's like, well, I can't even play the objective.
Right.
And I think that'll change. I think that really will change a lot, especially with vital assets. We don't know what the rest of the cards are.
Yeah. Well, I think,
but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you because not only like all of the objectives, the battle or the setup, the deployment areas, the
conditions.
The conditions. I think all three categories are gonna benefit tanks or heavy units in general, or vehicle units in general. So if you have a list with that was like, okay, this is gonna be really good at these few objectives, you want to bid for blue player, which is gonna be super hard with a heavy.
Oh yeah. What's interesting is I wonder if we'll just see people drop like how like most of the time we get to the point where like, hey man, you know what? I'll just slap a 40-point sniper
Yeah.
in there. I wonder if we'll see people be like, you know what?
Nah.
Forget. Yeah. No, literally like forget the sniper. I'm gonna add like an extra trooper
Yeah.
mini to this unit just so I can have like maybe a 15-point bid.
Right. And I think that might be something we're going to see soon is just the bids might get a little lower because, like, say your opponent doesn't have a tank, right? They're going to want to make sure you can't use, rollout? Yeah, rollout is the new one that we
Oh
play.
yeah, where you get to go out.
They're gonna
Beyond one?
they're gonna
Oh, yeah.
not want you to do it. They're not gonna want you to do
No.
bombing run with a tank. No way.
No.
Because if the Saber class or the AAT with their strafing mechanics can go drop a bomb, go grab another from a unit that died, go drop it again, guess what? They have armor, so even if they drop it right on themselves, the chances of them taking damage super low.
Super low. I did see this in the rules. So this is something to keep in mind. Vehicles cannot pick up other people's tokens.
Oh, they can only do it
They
when
can
they're
only drop
oh,
theirs.
okay,
But
that's good to know.
It is good to know. But either way, you think about like throw Plo Koon on there with
Yeah.
Agile 2, move.
Yeah.
You've got 4 dodges you can spend to cancel crits. Get out of here. You're not taking damage.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're already basically at their deployment zone.
Right.
So you just drop and then turn around, and next thing you know, you got a tank in your back.
That's pretty great.
That's wild.
Rollout breakthrough on with clear conditions, or no.
Like limited viz, maybe.
Limited visibility. That would be a dream scenario with clones in the tank, I think.
Yeah.
Because I can just run up real quick, break through, and then I turtle up in your deployment zone.
In your deployment zone. It's not, then you're just like, man, get out of my home.
Just sneak.
Kyle-
Pardon me. Let me just sneak right by you.
Kyle, go home, okay?
All right, and with that, we do want to just quickly move on to our main topic of the podcast today. We want to talk about building effective lists.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, to you, what does it mean to build an effective list?
Oh, well, Kyle. Actually, to be completely honest, that's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah.
But if I had to break it down to just what I think of when I think of building an effective list, I guess for me, it's more about making an idea work or being able to perform at the level you want your list to perform. For some people, that's going to be, be competitive to win. For a lot of people, it's going to be, okay, I want to play these objectives and I want to win those objectives. For some people, it's going to be, man, I want to do something really gimmicky, kind of a
Right.
jank list
Yeah.
and make it work. Like maybe I'm going to run all flamethrowers and I'm going to get that to work. Or like triple flamethrower RTs or triple tons. Like in some ways, some meta lists are super jank.
Yeah.
Because that jank's really effective. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like triple tauntauns is very janky, but it's very effective because it's very supportive. Helps
Yeah.
whatever units you plug in a lot of ways.
I think
But that's kind of, I think, what I think of. How about for
Yeah,
you?
well,
what about you?
we say like jank lists, right? And I think there's a reason we call it that because it's not like the traditional. It wouldn't be the traditional list. Like running triple Wookiee warriors in a list would be super weird. But like if you have an idea for it that makes them work, that's awesome, right? You want to make sure your lists are cohesive enough to where they're working well together. And even if it's not quote unquote competitive, I feel like something we make the mistake of is realizing that we're not competitive or is not realizing we're competitive in nature, if that makes sense. I feel like as players of a game that's 1v1, you're automatically competitive. Like always competitive, but not necessarily cutthroat.
Yeah.
You can be
yeah.
pretty casual, but you're not going to sweat every time you play kind of thing.
Dude, no, I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
Just like with
Okay.
with a sledgehammer, just get that chip off your shoulder,
Yeah,
okay, bro?
thanks.
No, I'm just kidding. But I think you hit the nail right on the head. How many times have you played somebody who's like, oh, yeah, this is just a fun thing I made. I just wanted to use these units.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell if they lose, they're disappointed they lost.
Yeah.
Or if they win, like, they're overly happy that they
Right.
won. You know what I mean? And I think you're right. Just the nature of the beast, you're going to have a little competitiveness to you. But yeah, with that effectiveness, maybe like get the cogs working in your clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to build a clock where some cogs are moving and others aren't. You want them all to work together. That's effective,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like different sizes, sure, but they all complement to achieve the same goal.
Yeah, whether or not you're winning, like they do their job.
Right, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the games we played this week. Finding a list with something you really like. Let's say you just love the ATST. You just love it. That's your favorite thing in the game. It's awesome. You should then find a way. Okay, your next step. What commander should I take to complement that? What commander is going to help that? You might say Veers. You might say a generic commander because they're a little less expensive, and they also do super well to support, right? Commander Vader, probably not the best pick, right? He's going to clash not only in points, but also dynamic of the playstyle. Palpatine, probably not the best. Maybe at that point, maybe you want to go maybe the generic commander or Veers, and then if you want still a powerhouse, get a operative, right?
I think that's a good place to put Bosk,
Right,
where he can hit hard. You can get all your crits with his pips, his cards, but he's not Vader cost. Yeah, I think what you hit it. You said something really key with that. It's that's one way to build an effective list is build around a unit. I think that's the first way you build a good list is you pick a unit you want to emphasize and you build around them.
Right. It's like Jell-O.
Oh yeah.
It's like Jell-O, right? So you can have Jell-O bare bones, right? You could just have red or green, blue, whatever color you want.
I mean,
Jell-O.
we're here in the 801. We're all familiar with Jell-O, especially here in the Mormon, what do they call it? The Mormon Alley, Idaho, Utah, Arizona.
Sure, right.
We all know about it. Yeah.
So it's like Jell-O. You have a mainstay of your Jell-O, usually, when you make a fine dish of Jell-O, if you will. You put, bananas in it. Oh. Maybe you put, peaches or something. You pick a definite flavor, right? You, have chunks of, let's stick with bananas for the sake of this analogy. You have banana Jell-O. Your main units, like your ATST or your commander, those are the bananas in the Jell-O. Then everything else needs to wrap around and fill and support that Jell-O, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little extravagant.
A little
also,
bit.
my hand gestures, I'm sure Matt's getting a kick out of it because I'm just waving my hands I'm swooping something up.
Like he's scooping a baby. It's a little weird.
Your list should be your baby, though. In a metaphorical sense. Let me just go on a freaking tangent of metaphors.
Oh gosh.
List building is like this water bottle. It's really ineffective unless you drink it. I don't know.
Oh gosh, no. Okay. Let me try to interpret this. Okay, I don't worry. I took sophomore year English. I know how to interpret. Okay, but what you're saying is that the Jell-O is all the units that complement and fill in the gaps in your list.
Correctly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there's truth to be said that a good list is going to be around 10 activations, correct? That's how you maximize your...
I think it's a good goal to shoot for.
And, by all means, if you have less activations than that, but you have really good, dynamics and synergy with your units that are going to help support that, by all means. I'm not saying you have to have 10 units. But 10 units is kind of the universally accepted, you should shoot for 10 activations.
Oh, yeah, and I think that, quality of units is huge.
Right. And so if you have somebody like an ATST or someone like a Commander Vader or a Palpatine, maybe you're getting a couple extra more heavy or high cost units, but maybe you need to start looking at stormtroopers to kind of give some padding. Maybe you need to look at getting some snipers or saboteurs to kind of give you the activations to lay the suppression on your opponent. Even though they're not going to do immense amounts of damage, they're going to definitely help with suppression, with getting maybe that last shot, maybe getting that first shot to get Hunter to go off. That's the kind of thing you need to think about. For example, what I like to do with the Tauntauns, I like to have 2 snipers and they pick the targets, right? Maybe I shouldn't tell you this. Maybe I'm giving away my secrets.
Oh, I think I played you enough to know. I see your mind.
Yeah, I see your mind. I see it. I see the island. No, I think so. So what I like to do is I use 2 snipers and 2 sets of Tauntauns, and the snipers are calling the shots for the Tauntauns with Hunter. So I'm putting 1 damage on someone with Pierce. So as long as I roll someone and as long as they're not immune to Pierce, I'm getting the hit through. So they're going to take a wound. You take Hunter, you push the Tauntauns up, and into that same unit, and they're wounded, so the Tauntauns get their 2 dodges and their aim token. And now with offensive push, your boys got 2 aim tokens.
Your boy's taking 2 dodges and an aim.
Yeah.
And then ramming.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's great.
You hate to
Anyways,
see it.
but you see what I'm saying, though? It's like you want to pick units that can complement each other well. And if maybe at surface level they don't complement each other well, maybe play with them a bit. Like, I really like these 2 units. I really like Snow Troopers, and I really like Death Troopers. How can I make them complement? What upgrades do I need to give them to make them complement each other?
Dude, you hit it. Yeah, exactly. And like with Snow Troopers, for example, like, how are you going to kit them out?
Right.
Like, what's going to make that unit most effective? Like, it's in a lot of things, a lot of games especially, you got to talk about min-maxing.
Right.
Like, maximizing the strengths of those units, minimizing the weaknesses if possible. That's not always possible. But,
Right.
like, I'd take a look at, like, Shorelines are huge right now. Krennic is a very important commander. But why is that? It's because he's got, first of all, entourage. So the list is really built around long range. The whole idea is long range shots. Get your range 4 shots in. If you've got snipers, you got
Right.
range 5. And just lay down a lot of suppression. So where do you get that from? Death Troopers, they have a weapon that can be in the suppressive configuration, the long range. You get your Shores with the Mortar Troopers. And with Krennic, you're really able to pass a lot of order tokens out at the beginning. It's just super efficient. It's a very well-oiled machine. That's why you see it a lot in the meta lists and stuff, because it's a very well-oiled machine. It's why Palp and IRGs work so well together,
Right.
because pull the strings, first of all, pull the strings works well with almost anything.
Yeah.
It's good. But, just finding those units that complement each other to the point that, like, it's just hard to break into them. Luke and Sabine are 2 other ones that I think go really well together.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into one of the things I want to talk about with this as well is difficulty tiers. Right there's two ways to look at this: difficulty tiers, in as far as like how to use the unit, and then also what the unit does, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, I feel like Palpatine is a high skill tier. Like, to get maximum of opportunity out of Palpatine, you're gonna have to be a little bit more of a skilled player, because if you don't know how to pull the strings appropriately, your opponent can really capitalize on just, okay, that's a really expensive commander, I'm just gonna take him out, right? Like, that's how you want to use Palpatine, is to pull the strings like as much as you can.
Agree. Oh, 100%. And I think that goes right into, like, when you are building a list, like, you may want to run Palp, but Palp's not going to do what you want him to
Right.
do. Like, he needs to be dodging in and out of cover, and he needs to have somebody nearby to, like, pull the strings
Right.
on. Like, if you're pulling the strings on Stormtroopers, that's probably not the best idea. But if you pull the strings on IRGs, where they can charge,
Yep.
and they have better attack dice, and they have more health, and you're getting a lot more value out of them.
There's a reason they're his guard, right?
There's a reason.
They complement each other.
Exactly. And that's just using those commanders. I guess, who would you say are maybe, like, in your opinion, like, per faction, the 2 hardest to use commanders and the 2 easiest?
Oh, that's a good
I
question.
mean, how about you break down, like, from the factions you played?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I play Rebels and Clones. The hardest to play for Clones, Rex and Obi-Wan. Also the easiest to play.
Okay, so that's 2.
Rex and Obi-Wan. No,
Wow, that
so
was
it's
hard
kind of
to
it's
do,
kind of
yeah.
hard with. For the Clones, we'll just break it. I feel like Rex is the easier commander to pull off. I feel like Obi-Wan's a harder commander to pull off because, 1, Rex is cheaper. He has more, and 2, he has more synergy with the clones, so he's gonna be able to support them super well. It's really hard to mess Rex up, right? Like, he's a little weaker. Yeah, he doesn't have Guardian, sure, but he still has his red saves. He still has tactical. He has all these things, and he can still benefit from dodges from his fellow clones. Kenobi is a little harder because this is really interesting too, because we had a very different opinion on how Obi-Wan should be played.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, like, what did you think about how?
Well, so, like, when I first started playing, I was a little timid with him, but then I realized, okay, I need to push Kenobi up into enemy lines, pop hello there, and then wait for while Obi-Wan is maybe taking fire and dodging with all these tokens he has, he's going to let the clones move up and take away fire so the clones can fully effectively come in. And originally you were like, nah, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the way you should do it, but I found it very effective for me.
It really was, and it's interesting because I feel like Kenobi, he's one of those characters where he's got a couple ways you can run him.
Yeah.
Like your way, getting up there, hold the people down, and the way I like to do it, and I think that guy, I mean, in my opinion, I think the way you should do it, use his Guardian in Stress Mastery. Like, use him to kind of like slowly walk up with your clones and take the hits. Because if there's one thing clones hate, it's Pierce. It's suppression. And so if he can do what he can, but those are two ways that they both complement the clones.
But I think that aids our point of Kenobi is just a harder unit, a harder commander to take care of properly. Because, like, I don't think anyone has a... Like, it is built into Rex's, literally his DNA to be with the clones, you know? Like, he is meant to be in that giant slobby pothole of clones, you know?
Like, one might say he is a clone.
Yeah, you might say it. I don't know why.
Like,
but
hot take, I think Rex might be a clone.
Season 7 probably will confirm this.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll get in a book or a comic or something.
Yeah, I hope we find out where Rex came from, his origin story.
Mommy? Where did... I'm just kidding.
Well, you see, when a Camino and Master Sypha Diaz love each other very much.
And hire out a bounty hunter as a surrogate, you know.
Oh, no.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it. Yeah, so
gosh.
I think Rex is easier to play. On to the Rebels, though. Easiest commanders to play. Leia. And... See, I want to say Luke.
Luke is like I want to bring this up real quick, just side point.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. Luke is a hard one for me to think of.
Really, yeah. Because, like, I want to say he's easier to learn, but he's easy to learn, difficult to master.
Yes.
And I feel like Operative Luke just made that even worse.
Whole other animal.
I loved my game with Operative Luke. Like, I didn't even think we got to talk about that in my game earlier.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Like, my game earlier, or my game this week with Operative Luke, he, got a suppression from C-3PO. He got his dodge. He also did Force Reflexes to get a dodge. He was deflecting left and right every turn. Force pushed, Master of the Force. I would pay 400 more points to get another Master of the Force.
Really?
Like, I mean,
Wow.
Exaggeration for sure, but Master of the Force, I wasn't convinced was enough of a reason to make Luke that expensive, but it so is. Especially an Operative, which was really weird to me. But
especially because he's like the Operative being more expensive.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have thought it'd be that way.
But I feel like Luke is easy to learn, difficult to master. I feel like bare bones out of the box, easiest is going to be Leia, and then Han. Han's like pretty straightforward because he couples with Chewie.
That's true.
Their command cards have great synergy. I like how you brought up Sabine and Luke. Sabine and Luke work really well. You're going to see less of that, I feel, now with Operative Luke, because I don't think you're going to take... Because
he won't take both operatives.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
and then also,
expensive.
if you want R2, there's no way to fit him in there anymore.
That's true.
And that's the thing, like, and going on to the hardest ones for the Rebels, I feel like Luke, like I said, he's easy to learn, difficult to master. Operative wise, I do feel like see, the thing is that, I'm trying to say this, and I'm also thinking like, wow, the Rebels are pretty easy to learn. Like, I feel like they're
I think Jin is a high skill level one.
Yes, thank
Jin
you.
is.
Thank
'Cause
you.
I feel like I don't know if you've seen this, and this is like me coming out of nowhere, but like I've seen people in bat reps and in games use her to great effect. But I've also seen people really blunder with her.
Yeah.
Same thing with Pathfinders. I think Pathfinders have their uses, but too often that feeling that, man, I can just throw them out there.
Yeah.
They're gonna get wiped because classic Rebels, white defensive
Right.
saves.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because also, like, you can keep Jin alive with Danger Sense and quick quick thinking. Actually, I think that is what it's called.
I think it literally is. Yeah.
No, and that's true. I've only played with Jin maybe two or three times. I liked her, like, I liked the way she played, but I also just. I just think that you're right. I'm glad you brought Jin up, because she wasn't even on my radar, because she's hard to play.
Hard to play.
And I think that's why, because I rarely play her because she is harder to play. Whereas,
Leia's
if I
a
have
little
Han
bit-
and Chewie, it's easier. Leia has her great synergy with her core units.
Pop her one pip, and then you don't care if she does the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, it's like I already eliminated 2 sniper units and put some great damage on your mortar. So here we go.
Right?
No, but yeah, so I think I think as far as those go, those are the easiest and hardest.
Yeah.
Matt, you play Empire and droid, and the droid.
The
Krankos.
droids. The Krankos.
Empire. What's the easiest and hardest?
Well,
or commanders.
Going off with like the Empire, I really got to think Veers is the easiest by far.
Okay.
I mean, this is like just for those at home. I'm not including generic commanders for this. Just like,
I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, I don't
either.
think so either. I think it's unnecessary. But like Veers is the easiest, mostly just because he's got a gun. He throws 3 whites. He surges to crit. He has pierce. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
He has spotter, and I think spotter is the key.
Yeah.
Because he actually has something he can do. Krennic is another one that I feel like he's still low tier, but he's a little higher. So he's probably the second lowest, just because he is a lot. He is easy to do. Use him to entourage. You use him for his command cards. The timing of his command cards is key, so there's a little thought that has to go into that. But Krennic himself, he's not going to do much. I mean, that's why I run him with electro binoculars, so he can actually have something to do on his turn. And the top 2, I think, obviously, like we know what number 1's going to be, but I really think number 2, man, it's just got to be Vader.
Yeah.
And I say that because, at least as far as how the game is right now, I find it hard to find reasons to run, Commander Vader.
Yeah.
And that's not to be a bad thing, but I just feel like there aren't enough units that complement what he wants to do, and Luke does those things better. What I am looking forward to trying is Operative Vader with Palpatine, and Palpatine is the hardest just because he's all about control.
Yeah.
So you can't play your hand too early or too late. You have to know, okay, what units am I using? Where are they? Example from LVO, Luke Cook with the IRGs moving and then shooting, and then next activation using Palps pull the strings to move them back into cover.
Yeah.
That is a clutch move that I think in the end helped him enough to win that game, because he did that so many times, but that requires so much forethought.
Oh yeah.
But when you do it, it works. And
So remind me, my memory is failing me. Pull the strings. Can you do that with commander and operative units?
So it's pull the strings is an action. but
Right.
It's the somebody at range 1 to 2 can perform an action.
But is it a trooper unit? Or is there restrictions? Is what I'm saying.
I can't. I'll have to have a look at the card.
Yeah.
I think it's just unit. I'm pretty sure like you could probably pull the strings on an ATST if you wanted.
Well, so my brain is spinning here, thinking like, okay, well, what if I had Palpatine? Then because you can resolve any effects that take place with an action,
Like charge.
like charge, right?
Yes.
So Vader, you move,
Trigger Relentless. Yeah.
and maybe he's still not in range. You spur and move.
Oh, like maybe you could spur with it too.
yeah. Can you do that?
That I'm not sure. I mean, I have to look into it, but it would make sense because
Right,
spur
'cause-
is on his card. That
right.
when he moves, he may take the suppression to
To
increase his speed.
do an additional move.
And that's-
so
yeah.
it's one of those things. It's like an additional reaction to the action. So maybe you're gonna catch an unsuspecting Leia or
Oh, when he jumps to speed 2 all of a
yeah,
sudden.
it's like, oh crap, Vader's all of a sudden in my face. Palpatine just forced Operative Vader to just wreck house with me.
Well, that's interesting too, because with Operative Vader and Spur, he can go speed 2. If you can get 3 moves at speed 2 with him, that's a long distance to
Yeah.
cover. Granted, Palp has to be at range 1 to 2 when they do that, but suddenly Vader's getting in there really early.
Yeah, and I mean, like with Relentless, like you just
It's a
you
lot.
can't go wrong. You
No.
know, I feel like that's going to be something we need to try out.
It's what I want to try.
It could be
for
really
sure.
good. It could be really bad. You know,
It could be. But yeah, just to wrap up real quick, droids really obvious. Grievous is the easiest one. Just because he's just a beast. You
Yeah.
just throw him out there, he'll do damage. Dooku, I feel like he's mini Palpatine, and so after using Palp a lot recently, I see the way that Dooku with his command cards, there are some great things you can do.
Yeah.
He does need some units he can work with, like the IRGs or kind of that pull the strings mechanic to get there. But like he's like Diet Palpatine. He's Palpatine light.
Palpatine
Yeah,
light.
but I guess like maybe to wrap up the segment too, like so what would be your tips, your top tips to build lists? Like if you just had to like name them, just be like, do these things.
So if you are still like just at a point where you're playing with friends, you're not really looking to go to tournaments, but you're still trying to be competitive and like gain an edge over your friends in
Yeah.
any way, just pick a unit you like, and then whether it's a commander, operative, core, whatever it may be, and then do the Jello, right? Put the Jello over them. Make sure that you are building on their strengths and not taking away. Like the last thing you want to do, right, is get an ATST and then like Operative Vader and Palpatine, you know,
take no command cards that
Yeah.
will issue orders to it.
right?
Yeah.
And that's not what you want. And in a movie sense, in a thematic sense, like awesome, you had a cool battle. But like if you are trying to be competitive at all or just get an edge over your opponent, that's probably not what you want to do. My advice is just find what you want to play, find what you find enjoyable, stick with it, and build around it, you know? What about you? What's your advice?
Oof. No, it's, the Jello thing takes it all. It's like that's so key. I think find out what is effective, and with that, like find out what your list wants to do, because there's the whole playing with those things, but find out what your list wants to do. Like, what is your list's thing? Is your list like a heavy focus? Is it tank focused? Then put 2 tanks in there. Bring a command hand that has like Veers' cards if you're a commander, or if you're shooting from long range, bring a lot of long range guys. If you're close range, bring a lot of close range guys. Make sure you have all the guardian in the world, because you're gonna get shot real quick. And a lot of pick a tactic and build around it. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
as
and,
well.
And there's definitely
those
something
things go hand in hand, I feel.
right, and there's definitely something to be said. Like, I think what you said, Matt, is great. Like it's on point. I just don't want someone at home to be like, well, Matt said if I am going front and center, I should only bring charging people. That's not what he's saying.
No.
I feel like someone is going to interpret that way. I just want people to know, like, sometimes, like I said with the Tauntauns and the Snipers, like sometimes the laid back people are going to help the people in the front line.
Absolutely. And I think that's because in that sense, the tactic is to get the Tauntauns to trigger Hunter.
Right.
And it's so like, don't say, okay, I'm bringing Tauntauns, I want to trigger Hunter, therefore I need to bring Russian units. No,
Right.
think about, like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, how do I trigger this card? And that's something you can do. I do that in Armada all the time, where I'm like, I just want to, for example, the Starhawk came out this week. I wanted to just pull off the tractor beam trick, where you drop someone to speed 0. And at speed 0, you can't do defensive stuff. You just take the hits. And so I built a list purely for that and ran it at a tournament. I did okay.
Yeah.
But I got to do it, and it was fun. And I didn't feel bad. So do that.
Yeah,
work off attack.
And it's always a matter of forcing your opponent to play your way, and that's how you're going to win games, right? You have a gimmick or you have an idea that or a combo that you want to go off, right? You have to force your opponent to let you do that, right? So when you build a list like with like how you said Armada, like to get a card to go off, like you have to make your opponent into that situation. Your whole game, and maybe this is getting a little off topic of list building, going into more of
like
gameplay.
command hands and like picking objectives and stuff.
Like you have to set up for. You can't just be like, all right, ATST's on the field, like I'm going to go for it. Like maybe you need to start thinking, okay, well, how am I going to force my opponent to get into arc and stay in range of all of the guns? You know, because that's rough to do, to get your arsenal off with General Weiss and just trigger everything. It's hard to do.
And I think that's a big reason we don't see fleet troopers too, is because people think they're cool, but it's hard to build a fleet troopers. Because you're all about standby.
Yep.
That'd just be my thing. I mean, we could obviously go into command hands and picking objectives, but just basic once you're starting to build that list, make sure it's cohesive.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right.
You did. You said Jello.
Yeah, I guess
the Jello
true.
was better.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But moving on, we are going to be jumping into questions from the community.
Ooh.
First question, we got Will from our Discord. He asks, how do you keep yourself open to learning every game, even when things go bad and you just got creamed? How do you get over the bad dice luck, the bad decisions, and make the game a net positive for your Legion growth?
Oof,
That's a great question. We could make an entire podcast off of this question.
Dude, weren't we literally talking about that this week at some point? Like this question alone?
Exactly.
Yeah. But side note, we literally came to talking about this before the question came
Right.
up.
And that's so interesting because I feel like this topic does kind of answer that is what are your lists looking like? But let's open up this question because there's a couple things packed in here, right? So first thing, how do you keep yourself open to learning every game? First of all, I don't take the game more than what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's a game, right? Like, I'm not alone in thinking that. Like, sure, like, you put your money, your time, your effort into painting. You have to remember, though, that's the hobby portion. That's a completely separate thing, right? You could pay someone to make your minis, you know? You have to remember that this is a game. And I know that may sound like, oh, geez, you're kind of being a little harsh, Kyle. Like, it's true, though. Like, if it wasn't a game, if this was actually war, I would say, yeah, I get heated about stuff.
Bro, could you imagine that if it's like, okay, whoever wins this game lives, whoever loses this game, off to the guillotines,
Yeah.
baby, like that. Yeah, that's not how it is.
We're really
It's not like
fortunate we
that.
haven't run into anyone that takes this game too seriously in
Yeah.
our community. Like,
Yeah.
we're really fortunate, like, because nobody. I gotta choose my words carefully here, because I'm just gonna say it. Nobody wants to play with the guy that gets mad at every game, right? I don't think that's controversial. That's very accepted, right?
No, yeah.
It just sounds harsh, and I don't mean. You know what? Screw it. I want to sound harsh.
Oh, Kyle, y'all didn't see it, but Kyle just put his hands on his hips and stood up a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow. Kyle, stop aggressive.
No, I just think that nobody wants to, and you should know that if you're the kind of guy that is going to get heated, or girl that's going to get heated after every game, you got to just chill. Like, nobody wants to play with you if you're like that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad. Again, I want to stress that enough. I'm really glad we haven't run into that in our community.
Yeah, I agree. And then, dude, in other games, I think we've all run into that guy that, like, as soon as things start going bad, they kind of start going, oh, man, like, I feel sick. Like, I got to leave.
Ugh.
And they kind of ditch out. Like, no, like, stick it out.
Yeah.
Stick it out. Be a good sport. And I think with that also, like, a lot of what the question is asking is kind of like, how do you keep from getting discouraged, maybe?
Yeah.
Because I think getting into this game, especially if you're newer, you're probably going to lose a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, I don't know, Kyle, how do you kind of keep going? And
Well, I'm
How do
really
you stay- how do
fortunate
you make
because
it
we
net
learned
positive?
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate because we learned the game together, and
Yeah.
I'm just naturally better than you.
Stop. Okay, for those at home, Kyle won, like, 9 games in a row?
I don't know. You were the one keeping track.
Okay,
I didn't.
I kept track because I wanted to win. And when I did win, dude, you were so heated when you lost. Okay, so Kyle was running and he was winning, and then he lost and he goes, that's it, I want to play clones now. I'm like, what? Well, you can't just do that to me.
I do feel like, yeah, looking back on it, maybe in that scenario, I was on the cusp of being the guy I just spoke of.
Yeah.
But I
think since we're friends, like, I didn't take it that way, and it was more like joking.
yeah.
But
But
there are
wa-
people that will take it seriously.
But like, I think because I had been playing clones so much, and then you like found like that one game, you're like, oh, I know how to exploit this now, and that's what I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like,
and that was the beginning
like
of the
looking
famous
back on
arms
it,
race.
Yeah, right. Like that was like you got the ATST, I got the Airspeeder and the Rebels. Also, like at that point, I was just really sick of playing the same faction over and over, and that was part of it because I'm like, yeah, my one gimmick is done, and in any case, like because, like if I was playing with another person, I probably wouldn't. Like, because I told you, I remember some of the things I said in our conversations about that too. I would have never said that to someone that I was playing with. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, I got to save my skin, you know? No, I'm just saying, like...
Like, like our relationship was to a point
like
we could be different.
Like, if we
that,
weren't friends playing this game, I wouldn't have even said, like, yeah, I don't feel like the clone. Like, I would have just, like, brushed it off. I would have been like, yeah, okay.
Right? And I bring it up also because, like, I lost, like, 9 games in a row. Like, dude, that's 9 games in a row when it's just you playing against your buddy and you're not playing against, you just lose. I kept going because, like, first of all, I had this idea in my mind that I wanted to get working.
Yeah.
So you had to push through it. But also, every game I was noticing, like, I think this is key to doing this, and I suggest you all do it at home. Kyle and I do this every game, and I try to do this with everybody I play with. We do a breakdown.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, or even, like, when it's wrapping up, you know it's basically done, you say, hey, man, okay, that was great. Like, what did you think? What was your side of it? And I think be open to listen to that. We don't see it too much here, but when people give you advice, don't shut them down because I see too many. I have seen this a couple times where you're giving them advice and they say, "Oh, well, yeah, but this is what I was thinking."
Right.
You might have been thinking that, but your opponent, who's on the other side of the table, read what you were doing and flipped the script.
Yeah.
Which means you need to be willing to listen to them more than lean into what you were trying to pull off because they saw what you're trying to pull off
Right.
and they stopped you.
Like,
and I know that's harsh, but they beat you.
Yeah.
listen to their advice.
Yeah, give them some respect because there's
Respect what they have
the
to
only
say.
way you can improve is by listening to those that are
Yeah.
better than you.
Yeah.
Or even that just maybe you are the best in your community. Maybe you lost one time and you're like, how did I lose? Listen to the person that told you, and then you're just going to be even better.
Yeah, and it's so key to do that. And I say do it with the. It's going to be hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to swallow that pill.
Also,
But also, like-
takedown of the game sucks, and it helps that make because you got to put all your things back in your case.
That you don't want 10 minutes of quiet when it's just like
Yeah, it's just super awkward.
moving things
That's
away.
the kind of
Oh,
the kind of
gosh.
attitude that I probably don't mesh with well is when the people get quiet because we're both very talkative about our games. Like how you said, we like to go over like goods and bads.
Yeah.
Maybe even like, okay, like what about this unit? Like, do you think I did? Like we've asked each other that. Like, how do you think I did? Because I don't know if I'm quite getting this right. You know, maybe they weren't even that effective into the game overall. But it's like, okay, what should I have done? Maybe.
should I cut this from the list? And I recommend trying something twice
Yeah.
at least. Another thing you suggest, and maybe you've seen this, Kyle, try playing against other people.
Yeah.
If you're losing over and over again because you're playing the same person, like for example, I've been trying to go to different game stores to
Yeah.
get games in. Not because I hate playing with Kyle or other people here,
It's
but
true
like
though. He hates me.
I do. I don't know why we're. Yeah. Welcome to the 801st. This is our last episode. No, but
A long way.
you, my friend. I can't believe there's another one coming out.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's wild. Side note,
I
yeah.
lost my brother, so they wrote me a new brother.
Who's better? He's John Cena. Yeah, but like no,
Paul Walker's so great. Where's Paul Walker too?
there is.
It's John Cena.
No, but like yeah, play somebody else. Get
Yeah.
a different perspective, and maybe if you do win, keep going.
And honestly, so to kind of wrap up your question, Will, I think I got the most discouraged with this game when I started losing more. I was like, because like when you won that one game, that also set off a big losing streak for me, like 3 or 4 games
It
in a row.
flipped the script.
Yeah, I lost a lot, and I was just like kept hitting my head against the wall, like what is going wrong? I never got discouraged in the sense of like, oh yeah, I don't want to stop playing this game anymore. I never got to the point where like Matt, like chill, like we were only playing each other and we were learning with each other, which is fine. You should do that for with your buddy or whatever. But I'll tell you what, like one of my biggest eye openers, Will, is when I came to your game store and I played with you guys and I played with some people that played differently than Matt. That was probably the first time where I was like, oh man, that's Legion, right? Like before it was just me and Matt hanging out playing Star Wars
chilling,
game.
straight chilling.
But when I came to End Zone and I played with you, with Keith, with the rest of the group there,
Rick was there,
yeah,
yeah.
Rick. Like once I started doing that, I was like, dang, this is great. So like
are you talking about the community?
right,
aspect?
the community
Yeah.
aspect pulled me through that, and not in a way where I was like getting depressed over it. Or
Yeah.
like I said, I never wanted to quit playing, but that just brought a whole new level of enjoyment. Is even if I lost, like playing with new people, getting different points of view. I even said this to a member of the community here that plays at Demo. They said like I gave him advice, and I said when it comes down to it, though, I give you advice. Matt gives you advice. These other players might give you advice. But you need to take that and do with it what you will. If I wanted to play Matt, I would just play Matt, right? And so that's why I think it's really important to just stick to yourself on this game and remember like what it means to enjoy this game, right? There's so many different reasons why you might love Star Wars Legion, but just remember those reasons.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. And remember, you are a valued member of the community.
Right.
If you are not there playing, your community will feel it.
Yeah.
They want you there. Even if you are discouraged, man, they want you there because they're your friend.
Yeah.
Remember that.
And that's not just at Will or anybody that listens to the podcast. I hope you guys take that to anyone that plays at your game stores. Like the last thing you want is someone to just go on a losing streak and feel like they're not welcome anymore because people are just beating them so bad or whatever.
Yeah, like
I feel like every store has one,
Yeah, like prop them up, and I mean we said this a little bit ago in one of the other podcasts, but like emphasize their strengths.
Yeah.
When you hand out criticism, this is for people handing it out. Also, like you can't just dish out salt, dish out some sweet as well.
Yeah. But yeah, that wraps up Will's question. So thank you again, Will. If you have any more questions, feel free to shoot them at us. Moving on to our next question, Rick Kelson on our Facebook page asks, Operative Luke versus Operative Vader.
Commander Luke.
Or
yeah.
sorry, Operative Luke versus Commander Luke. Is it worth the points? Yes, 100%. Like, I think if you got the points in your list available, you should go Operative Luke. But that also goes back to, like, how do you plan on using him? I used my Operative Luke to guard R2-D2 and C-3PO on Breakthrough. So if Luke and R2 got through just on themselves, if they got through on Breakthrough, then they got 3 victory points because you got 1 for each unit, and then R2's secret mission.
If you're playing Breakthrough, yeah.
Right. Like objective wise, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep that in mind. Maybe you don't need Master of the Force, right? Maybe you don't need that in your list. Then by all means, just take Commander Luke if you have the build for it. But if you're gonna play Luke, I am gravitating towards Operative Luke at the time. I've only played him once, but what I did play, I really, really liked.
Yeah, and I just looking at it statistically wise, because I mean it's sad to say, but like the game is really a balancing equation of math. You're trying to make your numbers greater than the other person's, because at the end you want to get them to 0 before you. It's math. Luke has more health and more suppression, like courage.
Yeah,
that's better. I guess since you're the Rebel player, with this question, what would be the command cards you would take? Because that's gonna be a big part.
Yeah, that's like a huge decision. I feel like, again, like I feel like a big reason Operative Luke came out was to give Luke command cards. Despite the he got buffed. He went to the gym.
Bro, he's been working out with John Cena for Fast 9. Yeah.
Right? No, I think it's hard. I think Son of Skywalker is still a must. I think both his 1-pips are a must, you know. I think once you get up into like you serve your master well, that's going to be another one that's going to be that's his other 1-pip. Yeah. But his 2 and 3 pips, that's the one to be like that. I feel like his 2 and 3 pips are going to still be okay, do I need this for my objectives? Do I need this that I'm going for at least? Do I need this for the build?
For like what is your list build?
Yeah, like obviously certain builds you're not going to want to play a certain objective because it would actually hurt you quite substantially. So that's when you need to consider like, okay, I need to play to my strength as much as possible here.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those command cards don't work out for you. And that's a decision you got to make, you know?
And man, I saw you do this in your game, and I think his card is so strong. It's I don't know if it's the best in the game yet. I think Palps is still a little better, but his I am a Jedi or whatever,
right.
where you choose units and they can't attack that turn.
Yep,
that's wild. That shuts down 1-pips for so many people. Grievous wants to do his 1-pip. You do that on Grievous? Nah, never mind. Palp wants to lightning. Psych. Never mind. Like that is a very anti-hero card.
Right.
And when you pulled that during your game, that was wild.
Before you go any further with that, so it's non-commander or operative.
Oh, that's
units.
true. Non-commander.
So you can't do that on
a
Beta or a
Grievous. You did that on Shore Troopers and Death Troopers.
I did that on Shore and Death Troopers because they were coming up on Luke and R2.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah, and so I didn't want them to.
Anti-commander. Yeah.
So, but it's still really good because what I can do is, like, say I'm facing Tauntauns. I can trigger effects that go along with the movement I can do with them. So I push the Tauntauns into Palpatine. I push the Tauntauns into Vader. That's a good way to shut them down, right? But I can't directly affect them, if that makes sense. So like I'll charge Tauntauns.
Oh, like you can't choke. You can't like throw your saber, but you can push them.
Or IRGs into a commander, and because they have Relentless or Charge, then they can do an attack, which is nutso. Even if you don't have
and that's with the I'm a Jedi?
I am a Jedi, yeah. Or sorry, no. So it's a two-turn effect. Well. Right. So you would do I am a Jedi, right? Get them like disoriented, get them in a position you want, and then I should have been more clear. My mind was thinking at two different times, right? Good. So you pop I am a Jedi, prevent them from attacking, right? Prevent like Death Troopers or whatever. And then the next turn you serve your master well. And then you would say, because they're already where you want them, right? What are they going to do? Like Death Troopers and Shore Troopers, if they see you coming up to the objective and they can't attack you, what are they going to do? They're probably going to rush for the objective because they can't attack you. Like, what else can they do?
Yeah, or you'll get rushed into melee to try and hit you. That's cool.
So you force them into where you want them to be. And this is just from my one playthrough. Maybe there's other things I'm not saying. I mean, of course there is.
There is, yeah. Like, well, we'll learn more.
Yeah. But yeah, quite simply, I do think Operative Luke is quite worth it.
And from that other side, we actually have a question from Keith, also on the Facebook page, about Vader versus Vader. So like the command cards to bring and overall, the overall
Yeah.
build. This is one that I think is a little more nuanced because it's hard. Operative Vader, it's nice to have a cheaper version. Mm-hmm. It's nice to get, the Master of the Force, the Jedi Hunter. Well, I guess he had Master of the Force. Did he? I don't think he did.
I don't think. No, I think he did.
I
mean,
did.
you're the Empire player.
I haven't done him enough.
Yeah.
I keep looking into him because I want to run and I want to make him work. But I'll be honest, I think just the fact that Commander Vader gets a little bit more health and that Infinite Courage value is just it's great. I think the key here is his command cards, and I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sold on them.
Yeah.
They're not even a little. They are very situational. So I guess it really depends on what you're coming up on. We talked about being able to like throw tauntauns and stuff around with his Vader's Might or whatever command card, and I think there is a time and place for that. Mm-hmm. But also tauntauns and what's being running around right now can be countered with standby and other things that also work. I guess what's your take on it? As the Empire player, I see you taking Vader so you can maybe infiltrate to kill people quickly. I also think Operative Vader, maybe he'll be better in the future with other units that are coming out. Maybe we just don't know.
Yeah, I think Operative Vader has, at this time, he is not seeing his full potential at his release. And I say that because we have Iden Versio coming out that's going to have Infiltrate. So if I pop Vader's command card that lets Vader infiltrate, Commander or Operative, right? We're going to start seeing the Empire completely take away the mid game.
I will admit, I think that's where they're starting to lose. I mean, yes, you have Boba.
Yeah.
But Sabine is just such a better choice.
Yeah.
And she can get there fast.
Yep. So you pop those guys back or up onto an objective, or maybe right up into a perfect position to start shooting or swinging a key unit of your opponent. That's going to be dangerous. It's going to be real dangerous.
I will say this is the one reason I think you should probably lean more towards the Operative Vader. Spur, yeah. Just get him to, because you can go to speed 2. That plus the Infiltrate, if you take it, huge. But hopefully that answers the question, because that's not one I can answer definitively quite yet. I would lean more towards Operative Vader, and I'll be honest, I think you'd still take mostly his original command hand. I would say take his original command hand.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of of Operative Vader. Just the point value, I think he's newer. So for a while, I think we're going to start seeing more Operative Vader.
Agreed. And like being able to spur and use his 1-pip so you can use Implacable, that's good.
Yep.
That's really good. All right. And I guess moving on to another question. We've got 2 more here. We'll try to tackle them real quick. We'll do our best to answer them. This one's from Jeff Norton on Facebook. It's about new players. So for new players, what to buy and what to stay away from. Ooh, that's another loaded one.
I feel like we kind of answered this one already. So we're gonna
like prior casts and stuff. Yeah.
Like just buy the things you want to make work. And while you're starting out, I would just say don't buy too fast.
Agreed. Yeah.
Don't go like, oh crap, I love shore troopers, I love stormtroopers, I love all this stuff. Like, calm down a little bit. Like, take your time. I made the mistake of buying way more minis than I could have time to paint, and now I'm still catching up on minis to paint.
Yeah.
I would say play with the minis you have twice, like how you were saying, before you make a decision to buy somebody else. Or maybe, you're like, okay, well, I have the core box. I really like Sabine in Rebels. Buy Sabine. She's great, yeah, but that doesn't matter. You should just buy her because you like her and then make her work for a list you have in mind, right?
And that goes right into the list building you were talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
And hopefully you got that answer.
And if I could,
podcast.
Right? And if I could just maybe say one thing, things you should always buy. I think strike teams for both is a must.
Strike teams are
just because they'll fill out your lists. I think if there was any just unit that was straight Jello, nothing but good filler to have always, strike teams.
And I mean, I guess as far as commanders go too, for the factions I play, I feel like Rex is a must buy, and I feel like Leia is a must buy.
Like Rex, Leia, Krennic are must-haves.
Because you're gonna find a way to use them. They're like the softer banana in the Jello. Like
That one you get that's just got a good texture to
yeah,
it.
yeah. Like they're not like staples of a list, but they really do help bring it up. You know, so they're not quite Jello though. You still need to make sure you have some finesse with your list.
Agreed. And like as far as like I don't know anything to stay away from, like because I'm always worried to say stay away from this
Right.
because you always get into that whole like, well, this is the meta. This is what you should run. I guess if you're talking less effective units, like harder to build around, fleets are a
Fleet
lot harder to
troopers are
build around.
harder.
I'm not saying they couldn't be used, but they're a little harder.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're a newer player, don't
Yeah.
hold off.
I feel like the Rebels
What
have
do
a
you think?
definite a few units that come to mind of I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Or at least like not as a new player.
I would not like. I have no desire to buy the land speeder like at all. I have no desire to have a heavy vehicle that rolls white defense dice that doesn't have as good of armor that doesn't have like I don't want that.
Yeah.
Also, like the point value to make that effective with this attack is not great. It has Arsenal 3, I think, but
but the weapons aren't that.
they're not that impactful. Get it?
Well, you can also just ace with the ATST.
Right.
Yeah, and as far as like Empire goes, I think snowtroopers they do have use, but I think they're a little bit of a trap.
Yeah.
Especially just because right now everybody's shooting you at range 4. Now that's again, I said this so much. You said it already. We're not saying don't buy units you want to play.
Yeah.
First and foremost, if you think something's cool or you want to run it, do that first. Don't not buy it because
Right.
two dudes doing a podcast said not to.
Exactly.
Yeah, just do what you want to do.
Right. And I guess just another thing I don't see a whole lot of play of, and I would like to see them played more, but I think there's something to be said of why we don't see them, are the cannons, like the E-Web, the 1.4D. Like, I don't see a lot of play on those. The stationary really does hinder them quite a bit.
It does, and like if you can get out deployed, like too many times I've seen them get out deployed, and then even though you can shoot, or maybe there's just a lot of cover, or you misplace it,
Yeah.
they can hold it up. But there are times for them, just
Yeah.
not always.
And then I guess moving on to our final question, will the Clone Wars tanks be enough to shift lists away from all infantry lists? And that's from Josh Waite on Facebook. I do think so. And I'm a big advocate for heavies already. And Clone Wars tanks with the ATs being a natural fit into a droid army that like can fit them already. Like you are not taking a loss at all. Like you're okay. I guess you're taking like with the lists that you're running with Dooku and Grievous.
Like I got to swap a commander.
Like even if you don't want two, maybe just have one tank in there. Okay, sorry, you had to get rid of like one core unit and a couple extra minis, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not that bad. Like you can't use droidicas, okay, but you got a tank, you know? Like,
Yeah. Well, it helps that the tank can shoot twice.
Right.
Which is huge.
And it's practically another activation, but also one that takes less hits.
Dude, what I'm excited for is running, like, I can't decide if I want to run Dooku or Grievous. I think probably Grievous.
Yeah.
At least for the moment. But, like, the options are going to be there. And I think we'll start seeing them a lot.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention, like on the other side, right, the beam cannon, being able to put suppression on so many units, right? Like, granted, against droids, they're not going to be able to suppress droid troopers.
Help, I'm being
But
suppressed.
right. But if I'm triggering my beam cannon on a shoreline, who doggy? That's awesome.
Or, like, even droids, they have to be at range 1.
Yeah.
Granted, they have their new guy that lets you break that up
Right.
a little bit, but my gosh, golly.
Yeah, like,
that's a
gonna
lot.
be great. No, I think to answer your question in short, Josh, I do think we're going to see much more heavy just by the fact that they're available, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone I haven't met a single person that thinks they look bad on the table. Like
Yeah.
I think they're all going to look great on the table. I can't wait to paint my Saberclass tank up in my
Like
Tron
Tron.
theme, have it look just like a recognizer.
You need to post more pictures of your Tron stuff.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, guys, and I'll post some pictures on Instagram.
Smash that like button. Ring that bell.
Just absolutely demolish that subscribe button.
Yo, freaking pile drive. Yeah. But
But
I
that
agree.
concludes all our community questions. So thank you guys. Thank you everyone who offered a question. If your question wasn't answered, we do apologize. We do just have only so much time in the day for this podcast, unfortunately. So keep asking those questions. Don't get discouraged. We hope to get to them all eventually. But yeah, Matt, any closing thoughts from you?
No, man. Like, just keep playing stuff. Keep having fun out there. The community's growing a lot. It's great to see.
Yeah. I think if I were to conclude this podcast with just one piece of advice, and this is going back to Will's question, don't get discouraged. If you have a list idea that you want to make work, don't get discouraged about it. Keep going for it. Keep playing. Keep getting advice. Keep bouncing your ideas off other people. Be open to ideas. Don't just close everyone off. If it's advice that you obviously don't want to take, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Just be open to it though. And think about it. But just don't get discouraged.
Yeah. Like, keep pushing. Like you'll get there. Remember, like, elementary school, you thought that was hard. Then you had to go through middle school, and let's be real, middle school was probably bad for everybody.
Awful.
Yeah, for everybody.
That guy has chest hair. Why don't I have chest hair?
Voice crack, dude. Yeah, you can do it. Just keep going. It's like a new job. This is the advice. I read a lot of self-help books, a lot of sales books. They always say to give a job at least 3 months before you decide whether or not to stick around. Because you don't know the job by then.
Yeah.
You don't actually know. You haven't given enough experience. Give it some time.
Yeah.
Once you start to hit that point, play some games, it'll work out.
Unless your boss is me, and then you're free to leave that game store.
By the way, this is my last day on the podcast. No,
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening throughout this longer podcast. Man, I feel like they're just getting longer. I don't know what to say about that. I'm not going to apologize.
Nope.
But until next time, everyone, just remember, when you're fighting those clankers, just tweak their necks a lot. Just break those clanker necks.
Just throw those punches. And this is Matt reminding you guys to take cover. Use your suppression.
All right, guys. Until next time.
See you guys.
We'll see you later.